The red light blinked 3 times on my monitor, then went dark. I sat there at 8:47 a.m. on a Monday morning, watching $40 billion worth of banking operations grind to a halt across 4 states. Mountain West Financial's entire digital infrastructure had just locked itself down tighter than Fort Knox, and I was the only person who knew why. My name is Carter Wells. I'm 52 years old, and 3 weeks ago some hotshot CEO thought he could fire me to save money on my pension. He was wrong, but let me back up here because this whole mess started 28 years ago when I got out of the Army Corps of Engineers and decided banking might be a stable career. Back then, computers in banks were basically glorified calculators, and most transactions still moved on paper. I started at First Colorado Bank as a junior systems analyst, making $28,000 a year and thinking I'd hit the jackpot. I built my career through 3 bank mergers, 5 different computer system overhauls, and more regulatory changes than I can count. Every time the feds came up with new rules, Sarbanes-Oxley, Basel III, Dodd-Frank, guess who had to figure out how to make the computers comply? That would be me. The thing about compliance work is that nobody notices when you do it right. When the FDIC auditors show up and find everything in order, when wire transfers clear without triggering money laundering alerts, when customer data stays secure, that's just Tuesday for guys like me. But screw it up once, and suddenly everyone knows your name. I learned that lesson watching other banks get hammered with penalties. Wells Fargo paid out billions for their fake account scandal. Deutsche Bank got hit for $150 million in anti-money laundering failures, all because somebody cut corners on the systems that were supposed to catch problems before they became disasters. So when Mountain West Financial hired me 12 years ago to overhaul their compliance architecture, I built something different. Something that wouldn't just follow the rules, but would protect itself from people who didn't understand the rules. I called it the Guardian Protocol, though I never put that name in any official documentation. Here's how it worked. I designed 3 core authentication modules that handled every banking transaction. Think of them as the foundation of a house. You can change the paint, replace the windows, even remodel the kitchen, but mess with the foundation without knowing what you're doing, and the whole thing comes down. I filed patents on all 3 modules through my LLC, Brooks Technical Solutions. Standard practice in our industry. The bank gets to use the technology, I keep the intellectual property rights, everybody wins. The licensing agreement renewed automatically every year with one important clause: if the patent holder gets terminated without proper succession procedures, there's a 30-day grace period to work out new arrangements. That clause was my insurance policy against exactly what happened 3 weeks ago. I should probably mention why this whole thing matters to me personally. I make $180,000 a year, which sounds like good money until you factor in the mortgage payment on my house in Littleton, $2,800 a month, thanks to Colorado's real estate boom. Then there's my mother in Phoenix, who needs assisted living at $4,200 a month. Social Security doesn't cover that kind of expense. I live alone with my German Shepherd, Scout, in a 3-bedroom house that's too big for me, but perfect for working on my 2018 Silverado in the garage. Divorced 8 years ago. Turns out working 60-hour weeks during banking crises isn't great for marriages. No kids, which probably made it easier for them to target me for elimination. See, that's what this really was, elimination. Not layoffs, not restructuring, just getting rid of expensive older employees before they could collect their full pensions. My pension payout was scheduled to be $2, $3 million when I hit 55. That's a lot of money for a company looking to cut costs. Enter Trevor Nash, our new CEO. 34 years old, Harvard MBA, brought in from private equity 6 months ago with a mandate from the board. Cut operating expenses by 20% within 18 months, or find yourself a new job. Trevor looked at the books and saw one guy making nearly $200,000 a year who could be replaced by some consultant from Chicago at half the price. What Trevor didn't know, what he never bothered to find out, was that this particular expensive employee held the keys to every critical system in the bank. I tried to like the guy, honestly. He seemed smart enough, and he was under a lot of pressure. Young family, big mortgage in Cherry Hills Village, the board breathing down his neck. I even felt a little sorry for him when I heard through the grapevine that his own compensation package was tied directly to cost-cutting targets. But Trevor had one fatal flaw. He thought everything could be optimized with MBA frameworks and consultant reports. When I tried to explain why certain compliance procedures couldn't be streamlined, He'd get this look like I was just another old-timer afraid of change. The tension started building about 3 months ago when Trevor brought in his efficiency team, recent graduates who thought they could revolutionize banking with artificial intelligence and agile development. Nice kids, but they wanted to bypass security protocols that took me years to perfect. When I pushed back, Trevor started excluding me from planning meetings. That's when I knew my days were numbered. In corporate America, once you become the guy who says no to the boss's pet projects, you're marked for elimination. It's just a matter of time. The writing was on the wall when Trevor started asking questions about succession planning. Not the good kind of succession planning where they develop internal talent. The kind where they figure out how to replace you with someone cheaper. He brought it up during our monthly compliance review meeting. Carter, I've been thinking about knowledge transfer procedures. How quickly could someone else get up to speed on your systems? I should have seen it coming. In banking, when they start talking about knowledge transfer, somebody's about to get transferred right out the door. Here's the thing Trevor didn't understand about what I'd built. The Guardian Protocol wasn't some separate program sitting on a server somewhere. It was woven into the fabric of every single banking operation. Customer authentication, wire transfers, regulatory reporting, fraud detection. Everything flowed through the modules I designed and patented. Think of it like the electrical system in your house. You can change the light fixtures, upgrade the appliances, even remodel entire rooms. But if you mess with the main electrical panel without knowing what you're doing, you're going to sit in the dark until a qualified electrician fixes the mess. The technical details get complicated, but here's the simple version. Every transaction that moved through Mountain West Financial had to pass through my authentication framework. It was all SOX 404 compliant, built to satisfy the most demanding FDIC auditors, and designed to fail safe rather than fail open. That last part was important. Most systems are built to keep working even when something goes wrong. Mine was built to stop working if something fundamental changed, like the original architect suddenly disappearing without proper transition procedures. I'd documented everything, of course. 26 years of technical specifications, decision trees, and system architecture diagrams. But documentation isn't the same as understanding. It's like having a repair manual for a jet engine. Doesn't mean you can fix one without proper training. The patents were the key to the whole thing. I'd filed them back in 2018 when Mountain West went through their last merger and everyone was worried about job security. Standard practice in our industry. Engineers protect their intellectual property. Companies get licensing agreements. Lawyers make sure everybody's covered. The licensing deal was straightforward. Mountain West could use my authentication modules as long as they maintained proper succession protocols. If the patent holder got terminated without a 30-day knowledge transfer period, the license would suspend until new arrangements were made. I thought it was good insurance against exactly what happened next. Friday afternoon, Trevor's assistant called. Could I come in Monday morning for a brief meeting? Just some paperwork to review. The way she said it, all professional and careful, I knew this wasn't about paperwork. I spent the weekend working on my truck and thinking about what I'd say. Scout seemed to sense something was up, kept following me around the garage, watching me with those intelligent brown eyes. Dogs are good at reading people. Better than most humans, anyway. Monday morning, I drove to the office for what I figured would be the last time as an employee. My badge still worked at the parking garage. Still got me through the lobby security, still opened the elevator to the executive floor. That should have been my first clue that Trevor had screwed up the timing. His office was corporate minimalism at its finest. Glass desk, no personal photos, everything designed to look efficient rather than welcoming. Trevor was sitting behind his laptop, looking like he hadn't slept much. When I walked in, he didn't offer me a seat. Carter, thanks for coming in. I'll get straight to the point. I appreciated that, actually. No small talk, no fake pleasantries. The board has decided to accelerate our operational efficiency timeline. We're eliminating your position effective immediately. He slid a folder across his desk. Termination paperwork, COBRA insurance information, and a check for 2 weeks severance. What wasn't there was anything about my pension. This is it? I asked. It's a generous package. 2 weeks pay, and we're not requiring a non-compete agreement. Generous. After 12 years of keeping the bank compliant with every federal regulation on the books, 2 weeks was generous. What about my pension benefits? Trevor's hands were shaking slightly when he reached for his coffee cup. HR will be in touch about that. There are some complications with the vesting schedule. Complications, that's corporate speak for we're going to fight you on every dollar. I looked at this young executive, and he was young, despite the expensive suit in the corner office, and realized he had no idea what he'd just done. Not just to me, but to the bank, to the system, to the $40 billion that moved through networks I'd spent 12 years perfecting. Trevor, I said, keeping my voice level, do you know how the core authentication system works? He blinked. That's what the tech team is for. Do you know who holds the patents on the compliance modules that keep the FDIC happy? Another blink. Carter, this isn't personal. It's just business. That phrase, it's just business. Like 12 years of my professional life was just a line item on a spreadsheet. I stood up, left the paperwork on his desk, and walked out. Didn't sign anything, didn't shake hands, didn't say another word. What was the point? He'd already made his decision and clearly thought he could just plug someone else into my role like replacing a printer cartridge. The security guard in the lobby, Tommy, been there almost as long as I had, looked embarrassed when he had to escort me out. Company policy, he said. Nothing personal. I got in my truck and sat there for a minute in the parking garage. 12 years, and it ended with a 20-minute conversation in a glass office. No handshake, no thank you, no acknowledgement of what I'd built. The 30-day grace period had officially begun. Trevor just didn't know it yet. But here's where it gets interesting. The next 30 days weren't about me plotting revenge or anything dramatic like that. Mostly I worked on my truck, took Scout for longer walks around the neighborhood, and waited for my phone to ring. The first call came on day 3. Larry Murphy, the compliance director who'd worked under me for 6 years. Good guy, understands the systems, but Trevor had passed him over for promotion in favor of bringing in outside consultants. Carter, we're having some authentication issues with the wire transfer module. Nothing major, but the error logs are showing warnings I've never seen before. I was under the hood of my Silverado, replacing the fuel pump. What kind of warnings? Something about succession protocols and licensing verification. The system keeps asking for additional authorization codes. That was the Guardian protocol starting to wake up. Not fully active yet, just running diagnostics, checking to see if proper transition procedures were in place. Like a security system doing its nightly rounds. Larry, you might want to document those warnings. Make sure Trevor knows the system is asking questions. I tried to bring it up in the staff meeting. He said the consultants would handle any technical issues. The consultants. Trevor had brought in a team from Chicago, specialists in legacy system modernization. They were charging $50,000 a day to analyze what I'd built over 12 years. From what I heard through my industry contacts, they were having trouble understanding the architecture. Day 7, my buddy Bill Torres called from First National Denver. We'd known each other for 15 years, worked together on several interbank compliance projects. Carter, heard you left Mountain West. You looking for something new? Word travels fast in banking circles. Depends on the offer. We could use someone with your regulatory experience. Our compliance team is solid, but we're expanding into commercial lending and need someone who understands the FDIC examination process. I told him I'd think about it. Truth was, I wasn't ready to jump into another full-time position. Not until I knew how things played out with Mountain West. Day 10 brought a call from Patricia Wells, head of legal at Mountain West. Smart woman, been with the bank for 12 years, actually reads contracts before signing them. She was calling to discuss some technical questions about my employment agreement. Day 15 brought a call from my mother in Phoenix. Her assisted living facility was raising rates again, up to $4,400 a month starting in January. Between that and my mortgage, I was burning through savings faster than I'd expected. Cobra insurance was another $800 a month, and unemployment benefits don't exactly cover executive-level expenses. But I wasn't panicking. Not yet. I had enough saved to last 6 months, maybe 8 if I was careful. And there were other opportunities out there. Great Plains Bank had reached out through a headhunter, offering consulting work at $300 an hour. Day 20, my old colleague Mike Rodriguez from Denver Community Bank called. He'd heard about my situation through the grapevine. Carter, if you're looking for consulting work, we could use some help with our SOX compliance audit. The regulators are asking questions about our authentication procedures. Day 22, Larry called again. Carter, the system warnings are getting more frequent, and some of the overnight processing jobs are taking longer to complete. Trevor wants to know if this is related to the migration planning. Migration planning. Trevor's consultants had convinced him that the best solution was to completely replace my authentication modules with something more modern, something they understood. What they didn't understand was that you can't just rip out the foundation while the building is still standing. Larry, the system is trying to tell you something. You should listen. What's it trying to say? That it doesn't recognize the new people as authorized to make changes. Day 28, I got a call from Patricia Wells, Mountain West's head of legal counsel. Carter, I need to ask you about some patent filings. There are references in your employment agreement to intellectual property licensing through something called Brooks Technical Solutions. That's my LLC. I hold patents on the 3 core authentication modules that your compliance systems depend on. Long pause. Carter, are you telling me that you own the patents to our core banking infrastructure? I own patents on 3 specific security modules, yes. The bank has been operating under a licensing agreement that's renewed automatically every year. And this licensing agreement has terms related to succession planning, 30-day grace period if the patent holder is terminated without proper transition procedures. After that, the license becomes void until new arrangements are made. Another long pause. Carter, we're past the 30-day mark. I know, that was on a Friday. Monday morning, day 31, I was in my garage trying to get the timing right on my truck's engine when my phone started ringing. First Larry, then Patricia, then numbers I didn't recognize. I let them go to voicemail and kept working on the Silverado. Scout was lying in his usual spot by the workbench, watching me with that patient expression dogs get when they know something's happening but can't figure out what. Around 10 a.m., Larry called again. This time I answered. Carter, everything's locked up. ATMs are offline across all 4 states, wire transfers are frozen, and online banking is down. The system is displaying messages I've never seen before. What kind of messages? Guardian protocol activated. Unauthorized succession detected. System protection mode engaged. Carter, what the hell is a Guardian protocol? I wiped the grease off my hands and walked over to my computer. Mountain West's stock price had already dropped 12% in pre-market trading. Social media was lighting up with customer complaints about ATM outages. Larry, the Guardian protocol is exactly what it sounds like. It's protecting the system from unauthorized changes. Can you fix it? I can't fix what isn't broken. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. By noon, the story had made regional news. Technical difficulties at Mountain West. Financial was the polite way they described $40 billion worth of banking infrastructure grinding to a complete halt. My phone kept ringing. Trevor's number showed up 6 times before I finally answered. Carter, we need you to come in and resolve this situation. What situation? Don't play games. The entire system is down, and our consultants can't figure out how to bring it back online. I was looking out my kitchen window, watching Scout chase squirrels in the backyard. Trevor, I don't work there anymore. Remember, you terminated me. I'll reinstate you. Full salary, full benefits, everything back the way it was. That's interesting. But here's the thing. The system doesn't trust you anymore. And frankly, neither do I. The line went quiet for a long moment. Carter, what's it going to take? Read the documentation, Trevor. All the answers are there. By Tuesday morning, the situation had gone from bad to catastrophic. Mountain West stock was down 32%. The FDIC was asking pointed questions about business continuity procedures. Local news stations were running stories about small businesses that couldn't process credit card payments because their merchant services ran through Mountain West. Tony's Auto Repair had to go cash only. The downtown diner couldn't run credit cards for 3 days. 2 small accounting firms had to delay payroll because wire transfers were backing up like a clogged drain. When your local bank can't access its own computers, the ripple effects hit everyone. That's when Patricia Wells called me directly. Carter, I've been reviewing your patent documentation and the licensing agreements. I need to ask you something and I want a straight answer. I'm listening. Did you deliberately build a kill switch into our banking system? I was sitting on my back porch with Scout, watching him investigate something interesting in the bushes. Patricia, I didn't build a kill switch. I built a security protocol. There's a difference. Explain it to me. The Guardian protocol isn't malicious code designed to destroy anything. It's a protective mechanism that activates when proper succession procedures aren't followed. Think of it like a car's anti-theft system. If someone tries to hotwire your BMW, the engine won't start until you use the proper key. And you're the proper key. I'm one authorized key. The system could be transferred to anyone with the right credentials and proper procedures. But Trevor decided to skip those procedures. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Carter, the board is meeting an emergency session this afternoon. Trevor's position is being reviewed. That's between Trevor and the board. What would it take to restore system access? Proper succession protocols, which means bringing me back as an employee in good standing, conducting formal knowledge transfer with my designated successor, and ensuring the transition is handled professionally. And if we do that, then the system recognizes the new authority structure and normal operations resume. 3 hours later, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Trevor. It was Bill Patterson, a guy I'd known for 20 years who'd just been named interim CEO of Mountain West Financial. Carter, I want to start by apologizing for how you were treated. I've been reviewing the situation, and frankly, it's embarrassing. Bill was old school banking, worked his way up from branch manager to regional president, understood that banks are built on trust and relationships, not just spreadsheets and efficiency metrics. I appreciate that, Bill. I'd like to make you an offer. Chief Technology Officer position, full authority over system architecture, hand-picked team, and complete restoration of your pension benefits, plus a formal apology from the board of directors. It was a generous offer, more than generous. But I'd already started thinking about what came next, and it didn't necessarily include going back to Mountain West full-time. Bill, I appreciate the offer, but I'm pretty happy with my current situation. What current situation? You're unemployed. Actually, I'm not. Great Plains Bank offered me a consulting contract yesterday. 6 months at $350 an hour to review their compliance architecture. That works out to about $720,000 if I put in full-time hours. Carter will match whatever they're paying, plus a signing bonus. It's not about the money, Bill. It's about respect. Trevor made it clear that my experience wasn't valued. Why would I come back to an organization that sees me as a legacy cost center? Because we need you. And because you'd be working for me, not Trevor. That got my attention. What happened to Trevor? He's been reassigned to special projects. The board is looking for his replacement. Special projects. Corporate speak for we can't fire him yet because of his contract, but he'll never make another important decision. Bill, I'll make you a deal. I'll consult on getting your systems back online, but I want Larry Murphy promoted to Senior Compliance Director and given full authority over the transition process. And I want a written guarantee that any future system changes go through proper review procedures. Done. It took 6 weeks to fully restore Mountain West systems, not because the technology was complicated, but because we had to rebuild trust. The Guardian protocol wasn't just checking for technical credentials. It was verifying that the people making changes understood the implications of what they were doing. Larry turned out to be an excellent successor. He'd been watching and learning for 6 years, and he understood something Trevor never did. Compliance isn't about following rules. It's about protecting people. Customers, employees, shareholders, the whole ecosystem that depends on banks working properly. During the restoration process, Larry proved he could handle the pressure. When FDIC examiners showed up asking hard questions about business continuity planning, Larry walked them through every system dependency and recovery procedure. When stressed customers called demanding to know when they could access their accounts again, Larry gave them straight answers instead of corporate doublespeak. The consulting arrangement worked out better than I'd expected. 3 days a week at Mountain West, helping them rebuild their compliance framework with proper succession protocols. 2 days a week with Great Plains Bank, designing systems that wouldn't need Guardian protocols because they'd be managed by people who understood them. Great Plains turned out to be everything Mountain West wasn't under Trevor's leadership. Their CEO, Patricia Stone, had been running community banks for 30 years. She knew that technology serves the business, not the other way around. When I explained how authentication systems needed to integrate with regulatory reporting, she asked intelligent questions about risk management instead of demanding cost-cutting timelines. The industry took notice of what happened at Mountain West. Banking publications ran stories about single-person dependencies and succession planning. The American Bankers Association invited me to speak at their annual compliance conference about building resilient systems. Other banks started reaching out, asking me to review their own technical architectures for hidden vulnerabilities. My presentation at the Denver Banking Forum drew over 300 attendees. I called it the human factor in system design and focused on why technical safeguards matter when corporate priorities shift. After the talk, a dozen compliance officers came up to share their own stories about being pressured to cut corners on security procedures. 3 offered me consulting contracts on the spot. Trevor ended up leaving Mountain West about 4 months after the crisis. The official story was that he'd accepted a position with a fintech startup in Austin. The real story, according to Larry, was that the board gave him a choice between resignation and termination. His efficiency initiatives had cost the bank $40 million in lost business, stock price damage, and system restoration expenses. Last I heard, his new company was trying to revolutionize cryptocurrency trading with artificial intelligence. Same playbook, different industry. Bill Patterson brought in a permanent CEO about 8 months later, a woman named Sandra Martinez who'd run regional banks in Texas for 15 years. Sandra understood something that seemed to escape a lot of younger executives. Institutional knowledge isn't overhead, its competitive advantage. Her first act was creating a formal knowledge transfer program for senior technical staff. Her second was establishing a technical advisory board with voting authority over any system changes that affected core banking operations. The whole experience taught me something important about the difference between building systems and building relationships. You can architect the most elegant technical solution in the world, but if the people using it don't understand why it exists, they'll find ways to break it. That's why I spend part of my consulting time now teaching younger engineers about succession planning and knowledge transfer. Not the bureaucratic kind that lives in HR manuals, but the real kind that happens when experienced people take the time to explain not just what they built, but why they built it that way. My financial situation stabilized better than I'd expected. The consulting contracts with Mountain West and Great Plains Bank brought in about $900,000 that first year. Great Plains offered me a permanent position as Chief Compliance Officer, but I decided to stay independent. Being a consultant gives me something I never had as an employee: the ability to walk away from clients who don't respect the work. My mother's care is covered now, and I've got enough saved for a comfortable retirement whenever I decide to hang it up. The house in Littleton is paid off, thanks to the consulting income. Scout's getting more walks than he knows what to do with, and my Silverado finally runs the way it's supposed to. I joined a classic car club and started going to weekend shows around Colorado. The banking industry keeps changing. New regulations, new technologies, new ways to move money around the world. Some of it's legitimate innovation that makes banking faster and safer. Some of it's just buzzwords and venture capital looking for the next big disruption. But here's what doesn't change. People need to trust that their money is safe, that their transactions will clear, that the systems protecting their financial lives won't fail them when it matters most. That kind of trust isn't built by algorithms or disrupted by startups. It's built by people who understand that with great technical power comes great responsibility. People who know that cutting corners on security today creates disasters tomorrow. People who document their work, train their successors, and build systems that protect themselves when nobody's watching. I got a call last month from a compliance officer at a bank in Phoenix. They'd heard about my work at Mountain West and wanted to discuss their own succession planning challenges. Turns out they had a similar situation. A senior architect approaching retirement, critical systems that nobody else fully understood, and a new management team focused on cost reduction. "What would you recommend?" she asked. "Document everything twice, train your replacement properly, and make sure the people making decisions understand what they're deciding," I told her. "And if they won't listen, build in some safeguards." I've started working on a book about technical succession planning in regulated industries. The working title is Building Systems That Survive Their Builders. It's not just about banking. The same principles apply to healthcare systems, power grids, transportation networks, any infrastructure that people depend on. The Guardian Protocol wasn't revenge, even though some people still see it that way. It was responsibility. When you build something that other people depend on, you have an obligation to protect it from people who don't understand it. That includes protecting it from well-intentioned executives who think everything can be optimized with spreadsheets and consultant reports. Sometimes the best way to teach people the value of experience is to let them see what happens without it. The banking system didn't fail because I wanted it to fail. It protected itself because that's what I designed it to do. And in the end, everyone learned something valuable about respecting the people who keep the lights on. Now, if you'll excuse me, Scout's giving me that look that means it's time for his afternoon walk. Some routines are worth protecting, and some relationships, even the ones with 4 legs and a tendency to chase squirrels, matter more than any system you'll ever build.